for realsy this time, start the video, Crow. So we've talked about the other, like, the overall balance changes. We talked a lot about armor. We talked a lot about explosion damage and making it do an anti-heal. Essentially, I don't think Blizzard should reduce healing across the board. What I think they should do is they should make that into a mechanic and then give that to essentially non-meta heroes to give them some viability. I think Blizzard tried to do this before, but it wasn't done well enough with the DPS heroes. Essentially, if some heroes are really affected by armor, then you should pick heroes that aren't affected by armor, like Junkrat, Pharah, the snipers, basically heroes with large damage. Because if you take off 5 damage from one of those shots, it doesn't really matter. But you do it to one of the other heroes, now it does matter. Well, that didn't work out as they planned. It wasn't like one team's always going to pick the projectile to deal with these burst damage or the armor, and then the fast firing heroes for the non-armored parts of the heroes. Didn't turn out that way. So what we want to do is just kind of add explosion damage and make it do reduced healing. That way we can start balancing the game more, having more mechanics, and having things be a little more fun without adding too much complexity. We went through the tanks changes, the support changes, and now we're going to look at the DPS changes. So just straight off the bat, I'd say 20% movement speed increase, and this is because of the lethality of tanks. And while I don't know what the number is, I think they're talking 15% in Overwatch 2. I would actually go a little bit higher, and this is so if you ever run into a tank around a corner, the DPS heroes, you can't balance it so that a DPS hero can burst down a tank hero within seconds, like before the tank hero can burst them down, because then this damage is way too high. It's insane. For a DPS hero to essentially burst down a tank, I mean, assuming 100% hit shot, like, that's not even possible, but basically a DPS hero shouldn't be able to do that. At the same token, we don't want the tank hero to always win. So what we do is we have this middle ground where it's a wash. If 2 heroes come around the corner, a tank and a DPS hero, the DPS hero could just run away. So I think the movement speed is needed immensely, just to make the game feel fun. It's also needed because DPS heroes need to flank. For those that don't know how Overwatch is balanced or designed, the only thing unique about DPS heroes is not their DPS. Their DPS is actually comparable to tanks or even less than tanks, and some supports are better than DPS heroes in damage. Where DPS heroes shine, and this is why I would say there is no movement creep in Overwatch, is that DPS heroes must have a way to allow themselves to keep damage on the target. This is why DPS heroes have mobility, and why I don't consider it mobility creep, it's just the design of DPS heroes. Basically what happened is heroes without DPS, or DPS heroes without movement, they start falling behind in the meta, not even in the meta, just as people get better and better and better, as these stationary DPS heroes can't move as much, they just start losing. They start becoming less versatile, they lose use everywhere. Because the only thing that makes them goddamn unique is being able to keep damage on. This is why snipers can get to high points, this is why most DPS heroes have like a movement ability. It allows them to be like, oh, I can't deal with something this way, well then I jump up this way, and then I can deal damage from up here. Or I can flank over here and deal damage from over here. Basically, it just allows you to move around and keep your DPS on the target. That's what makes DPS heroes unique. So, the ability to flank is finally added into Overwatch. I know people say you can flank now, but truly, it's not worth it. If you're ever going 6v6 and you notice someone flanking, your 6 just crushes their 5, game's over. This is what GOATS was. If you ever took someone off of the death ball, your death ball was weaker and you died. We have to allow heroes to get on the flank and to do something. It should be a little bit risky, but they should be rewarded for it, and it should be a little bit easier than it is currently in Overwatch. Currently in Overwatch, I'd say there is little to no flanking. In Overwatch 2, it appears that it's going to be viable. So people are going to go, whoa, flanking's too good, and the problem is they believe they're used to what normal Overwatch is, which is it's not viable. So yeah, going from a 0% viability up to a 40 or 50% viability, it's going to seem quote-unquote overpowered. And we're going to see complaints about flanking constantly in Overwatch 2. but that's how the game's supposed to be played. In fact, that's how Overwatch 1 should have been played. It's just that off tanks are too good, and if you flank, the off tank just goes, oh, I'll kill him. And then the DPS hero has to run away, or sometimes they can't even run away. Basically, they just die. So with the movement speed, sweet. We kind of dealt with this in a non-DPS way. It's a bit of a wash. It adds more versatility to the DPS heroes and gives them some more viability. So now for the hero-specific changes. We are going in alphabetical order. Let me just put a bunch of enters here. What up, Toaster? So Ashe? No, Ashe is what... Oh, before I go over all this, snipers are gone. I will rework snipers. But to me, Ashe is what the sniper version of Ashe is what the sniper should be in Overwatch. It shouldn't be a one-shot kill. It should be, hey, you don't zoom in and you got good deeps, but low accuracy, long reload time, and then range damage is great. Like ADS movement, or not movement, but ADS damage is great if you land your shots, but comes at a cost. That being said, I think Ashe's scope shots take 2 ammo. The reason I say this is that Ashe's weakness should be her reload and constant pressure on her. The problem is that most fights are over in the 12 shots she takes. So that reload really isn't a weakness in my books. It's just not that weak. So making it take 2 ammo will make her have to reload more, which brings back the weakness of her clip size. Or not her clip size, just her reload. I thought about making her clip size smaller, but she does need the just the normal shots, not aiming, to deal with some close-on targets, and she does need the larger clip size. I thought about making the reload worse, but they specifically buffed it a long time ago just because it was too obnoxious, it seems a little too unfun, stuff like that. I would like some change to her ammo to make it her weakness, and this is the route I went. She has good lethality with her aim down sight, and it should kind of take a little bit more ammo. Now, the second change, Coach Gun, I think just does a little too much damage. Just put it back down to 60. I think it makes up, it does really good utility, and Overwatch 2's theme should be moving things a little bit away from abilities back onto your primary fire, back to FPS fundamentals. So here's that little shift. It's not that much, but like I said, I want it to be a little bit. So when you pressure her now, she's actually pressured because she can't just point blank you with the gun and shoot you a couple times and kill you. She now has to probably hit one more shot. Now her armor, or not her armor, her dynamite. What I would like it to do, right there. This is going to sound weird, but basically, I want dynamite damage to go down significantly based on what it's dealing damage to. So the initial explosion damage, I want it to go down from 20 to 50 damage down to 25 all the time. But it does 4 times damage against armor. Dynamite fire damage, it goes down from 100 to 25, but does 4 times damage to health. So essentially, if you got hit with a point blank with health by dynamite, it would essentially get nerfed by 25 damage. But if you had like any armor, well, the idea would be the armor would get shredded and then it would burn through it. But if you have armor while it's up, you're not taking a lot of fire damage. And if you're just got health, then overall it does a little bit less damage. So this is a way to nerf it without nerfing it hardcore against tanks or I'll just say DPS heroes because those are the ones with no armor usually. Instead of just saying, hey, damage gets nerfed by 20, or explosion damage gets nerfed by 25, or fire damage gets nerfed by like 50%, I'm just like, look, fire damage fucks up health, explosion damage fucks up armor. It should even out. Overall, it's a slight nerf. And one other thing to Ashe, and I don't know why this is still a thing. Ashe shouldn't be able to get ultimate while Bob is out. I think it's ridiculous. That's all. I don't even know if I have to justify myself on this. I think it's really crazy that she can have a 1,000 hit point hero on the point, capturing the point, and she's gaining ult to get it back. And she gains ult very quickly. It makes sense that fire should damage armor more. It's actually the opposite way. Just because we're going with explosion damage is anti-armor. If you have fire damage and you have armor and you're taking fire damage, you're taking a fourth. Just my overall thoughts. For my overall thoughts back in the day, Ashe is one of the strongest heroes in the game. Her main weakness of reloading is currently countered by most fights being over before she has to reload. With this change, she now has a larger weakness without changing any damage values. Yeah. Good job, me. The Bastion change I talked about before, and it's going to sound very weird, but I think this is the direction we need to take Bastion into. Ironclad now means he takes 30 less limb damage. So there's going to be a little bit more, essentially, skill shot against Bastion. And the fact that he has a larger model means that we can kind of leverage it by his arms and legs being larger. Therefore, you have a larger chance to hit him. Especially when flanking or, from the sides, you're probably going to hit a limb just because that's how, physics works. Not physics, but that's how models work. And I want him to essentially have nanobots, and I want them to look like tiny Bastions that repair his armor. And it's identical to the shield mechanic, but for Bastion, it's for his armor. So now at this point, we took away his healing ability. He doesn't need that. And now his Ironclad is always active, so we don't have to reduce his model size or deal with the fact that we don't have to do shit, basically. Next, when Bastion crouches, I don't want him to crouch down like a human being does. I want him to crouch down like a robot would. Which would be like, the top part folds behind the back part, or the front part. So the top part just folds back, and it's his legs that he's literally in front of. So now, Bastion can hide behind his own legs, which take less damage, because they're a limb, and then he can shoot around his legs. This is the way we can get around forcing Bastion to transform into either high mobility or no mobility. Essentially, you can just crouch. There's none of that 2-second bullshit or 1-second bullshit of transformation time. It sounds like it would look slightly creepy. Yeah, but he's a robot. Like, he's supposed to transform like that. Where instead of just going, boop, he just pivots around his waist and goes, boop, boop. How would Ironclad interact with AoE and explosions? That's a good question. I would have to say it gets overwritten. It doesn't work against it. That way, AoE and explosions, again, Bastion would be one of the most heavily armored DPS heroes, and as an armored hero, his weakness should be against explosions. Isn't that how the new robots in the terrible new Star Wars-ish movies fold, right? I don't know. But it's definitely more robotic and less human, which is kind of what we're going for with Bastion. Yeah, I think this is just more notes. His legs look like a Bastion castle. Actually, that's like, I want... The theme of Bastion is definitely going with the castle analogy, or the concept. So, his knee armor has like little crenellations that you really can't notice when he's standing, but when he crouches and his legs come together, then it literally looks like a little wall. Yeah, it helps with the larger model, because it makes it smaller. It makes him feel very robot. As a robot wouldn't crouch, it would sink straight down. his first ability basically just gives him a minigun. The idea is that while he has a delay with essentially the higher DPS weapon, it doesn't stop his mobility. So he can swap while he's moving, and then as it, once it swaps over, then he can start shooting and crouch and get the damage resistance. There's a small wind up for the minigun, but again, it's kind of like how it is now, where it's high damage but large AoE, meant to shred down tanks and shields and other stuff like that. But I really wanted to disassociate Bastion's mobility with his DPS. I think he should still be mobile, but while he's shooting, maybe he moves a little bit slower. Not exactly sure, but the idea would be that he gets a minigun, he slows down a little bit, requires a little bit of charge time, but his movement isn't affected. Unless he's crouching, in which case it is. His second ability, I want it to be just literally like a cluster bomb. I say launches 6 explosives in front of him in a wide arc. So wide that if a hog is right in front of him, all 6 will not hit. And the idea is this is just to push people back. Kind of start making zoning, so if anyone's trying to get really close to him, he can just throw this out and run away. I said same ult as in Overwatch 2. I do like that. I think that's really neat. From what we've seen in Overwatch 2, they have buffed it, from what I've been told, or from what Blizzard has said. Jeff Goodman said Bastion was underwhelming. He had some buffs to him, but they didn't get pushed to the show match that they did for Overwatch 2. He did say his ultimate was buffed, though. These are my notes on this. By adding 2 passives, we target a couple of issues with Bastion. We no longer need to give him Ironclad to make him stronger in transformation or reduce his model size. We simply allow him to take less damage under specific conditions. This naturally allows us to leverage the slower mode without needing an actual transformation, which takes time, and that can easily be changed by crouching. 3, we give him some healing, but not to the point that he holds the button down and it becomes a DPS race. He's more mobile now, so we can make it a bit weaker. Basically, as it acts like shield, instead of being, I think it's 90 hit points a second, it goes down to whatever shields are, which I think is after, is it after 2 seconds, shields charge at 30 HP a second, if I remember my numbers correct. I may not. So overall, that's what I would want with Bastion. It would, I think, greatly change how he feels. I think it would be somewhat balanced, feel somewhat unique. That's the real kicker with Bastion, is that I think in most of his forms or most of his concepts, he just feels like a weird soldier. Like it's soldier, but if you put the slider bar, less mobility and more DPS, just like a little bit, that's what Bastion is. And I just think he doesn't feel different enough, even though he has quote unquote transformation skills. I get that. Like they say Baptiste is the gadget guy. Bastion's the transformation guy, but he doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't feel like he's really based on transformation skills. This one, with these changes, as he's crouching, he looks different. He plays different, right? He plays more robotic. It looks more robotic, but without all of the downsides of slow ass transformations. Cassidy, we'll call him Cassidy. Now, the question with this is, so obviously his stun's gone. For those that don't know, I say all stuns are gone in the game. So, Flashbang now is no stun, does 25 explosion damage, times 4 versus armor, so now we can shred armor at mid-range, or it would be close range. And cripples for 1 second. So cripple, as we know, is you cannot use movement abilities for a duration. In this case, it's 1 second. The idea is, and I really thought, like, when I was going around with this, I was like, man, should he just have like a shrapnel grenade? He throws it, it throws shrapnel pieces on the ground. If you step on them, it does the no movement stuff like Junkrat's trap. Wouldn't slow you down, just it stops you from using mobility abilities. It seemed just because there'd be more shit in the game, more stuff on the floor. Can you shoot the stuff? Can you completely ignore it? If someone doesn't move, does it not hit them? Like, there's a lot of things about it, and I was like, you know what? Just make it so it shreds armor, and then you're not allowed mobility abilities. That way, he's supposed to be like a very, very strong mid to short range hero. That is his role. I just think Flashbang removes the ability to counterplay, which sucks. If McCree hit all headshots when he's in close range, hey, he headshotted me. That's his win. But if he stunned me and then didn't do shit, then nah, I'm a little bit upset. Secondly, I would change Fan the Hammer. Bloom increased 75% large enough that all shots shouldn't hit a small model at point blank. So essentially, if Fan the Hammer is there to shoot tanks, then I don't want it to be viable against anything else. If a McCree is pressed up against a Junkrat and uses Fan the Hammer, he should miss 50% of his shots. I don't like the ability. I think Cassidy should be reworked. But I'm not exactly sure on how to do it, and I don't know how far I should take the rework, because at some point then it just becomes a new hero, and it's like, why not just change him a little bit and then make that other person a different hero? Like, why waste 2 heroes worth of design on 1 hero? And overall, like, he's decent. He's very strong, but it's just the stun that really, I think, pisses people off. Remove his stun, give him the ability to strip off armor off close range targets. Quicker targets can play around as the Okay, so I must have been. So yeah, I'm still thinking 2 different ways to make his grenade. I guess, and this is kind of when I write this. I write my thoughts at the time so that I can check myself. Because if someone throws a grenade and it drops 6 pieces of shrapnel on the ground, as soon as you start moving, then you start getting denied your mobility. They can slight damage. Deny area movement based heroes without removing control. Ah, man. I really don't know which direction to take them. I feel it's just one of those situations where no matter what you choose, people are going to bitch about the other one. So, next hero, Doomfist. I actually talked about these on stream today. Punch no longer stuns. Doomfist Slam doesn't bring targets closer, only straight up. So right now, if you get slammed, you get pulled a little bit closer to the Doomfist. It should just go straight up. And secondly, Doomfist can't use primary for 0.2 seconds after an ability is used. So this gets rid of that phantom shot between slam and uppercut, where it instantly goes off and you can't dodge it or do anything about it. This will make Doomfist have to follow up with more SPS fundamentals, which is what we want. Overall, my biggest issue with Doomfist, from a design perspective, one of the developers, it was on some stream, it's when they first changed Doomfist's uppercut to take, instead of taking away control, get this, I don't know if anyone remembers it, but if you got hit by Doomfist uppercut, you didn't get air control for 8 seconds. There's nothing you could do for 8 seconds. You just had to go up, and you had to go down wherever you landed. There's nothing you could do about it. They changed it. He said they removed it, where people had control all the time. And the developer's like, oh, you couldn't do it. Like, you just strafe around the Doomfist and he couldn't shoot you. So we had to take away control again. At a certain point, you have to look at Doomfist as If the enemy has control of themselves, Doomfist dies. The only way Doomfist is good is if the enemy can't respond. Which is the truth for all heroes. If a hero can't hurt me or do anything against me, and I can do to them, I win. And I think that design concept is just bad. I think it's a really shit thing. And that's why Doomfist is right now is borderline overpowered and absolutely useless. If you stun him, he's dead. There's nothing you can do. He has to change his hero. If you don't stun him, he will get an assassination off, and there's little to nothing you can do about it. Like, there's some things you can do about it, but a good Doomfist, top 500 level, they're going to get their shots in if you can't stun. I think this is really bad. Like, in either case, the one that doesn't have control loses. Which makes sense, that any game where you lose control of your hero, you're going to lose. But here's my these are all the changes I would do, because look, with the removal of stuns, Doomfist is an interesting spot that is hard to pinpoint how strong he will be. Players now retain air control, so they're not helpless. That's also one of the changes globally, is you always retain air control under every circumstance. And with the delay added after an ability, it removes his instant shot immediately after slam before an uppercut. Doom players will not have to aim to hit their target with control to finish them. It's always been odd to me that Doom is amazing unless the opponent has control, which is the same to say as Doom is only good if players can't play. A terrible idea. Bam. I said it like I said it. Echo. I don't know how this hero hasn't been nerfed yet, but Tri-Shot spread increased by 25%. Echo shouldn't be landing all of her shots on a tank outside like 15-20 meters. For a shot that can headshot, I think she does way too much damage at mid-range. She's way, way, way too consistent. The fact that Tri-Shot can hit 2 or 3 bullets on someone like at 30-40 meters is ridiculous. It should be a little bit better than a shotgun, but it shouldn't be like a rifle or anything else, like McCree or Soldier. It just shouldn't be able to do that at that range. Secondly, we're going to nerf, but also change her sticky bombs. So the fire rate gets almost increased by 100%. So it's going to be slower getting shot out. Sticky bomb damage from 5 impact, 25 explosion, to 15 impact, 10 explosion. So it's nerfed by 5 damage. And damage goes away from explosion onto impact. So it's trying to favor accuracy more. But the AoE is increased from 2 to 3, and as an explosion, this will anti-heal heroes. So the idea is with a slower attack animation, some people will say this is a nerfs, but I don't want her sticky bomb to be basically used on a single target. I want her to spread the sticky bomb around and anti-heal the team. That's what I would like. I would like her to be able to go bam, 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 and anti-heal 2 or 3 people very easily. You can't do that with a very quick animation. So by slowing the animation down, we kind of nerf it, but we also give people the ability to hit multiple targets with it. So we give it some versatility. Next, Focus Beam. I want Focus Beam to have a casting time. I want there to be a quarter of a second before she can use it. And if she ends it, there's a 0.5 second ending cast time. And if she ever misses with it, it gets canceled. If Focus Beam is meant to finish heroes off, she should be able to use it, and she needs to hit her target constantly. If she ever misses, it's disabled. I just think Focus Beam for doing... I didn't touch the deeps, just because I thought lowering the deeps doesn't make it interesting, and I'd rather give it an interesting nerf than just lower numbers. 200 DPS, unblockable, unavoidable, hit scan is phenomenal. This is one of the strongest abilities in the game. It needs to have something where if she fucks it up, she should die. Or it's a major, major disadvantage. I don't like how risk-free Echo is. And speaking of risk-free, what I would do to her alt: duplicate alt charge, bonus from 600 to 500%. So she gains alt a little bit less slowly. But there is an issue with Discord and duplicate. Blizzard already announced this. They're like, we're going to have to figure something out so Discord always doesn't go on the tanks, and so Echo always doesn't duplicate the tank, because the tank is stronger now. It's just a no-brainer. Who are you going to copy? A weaker hero or a stronger one? You're going to pick the stronger one. So my idea to dissuade Echoes from always picking the tank is you make her alt give people more alt charge. If you pick Hog, then you should give not 600 hit points away, but 1800 hit points worth of alt charge away. I think this would actually give her risk and pause when she's trying to duplicate someone, especially in Overwatch 2 when the tank is strong. I think this would all put her on par with other heroes in the game. People would say it's nerfed too much, but Echo's pretty fucking crazy. Echo's DPS is on par with most other projectile heroes, but can headshot. That's correct. So Echo's DPS is 119, and Junkrat's is 128. So, but Echo can headshot, and they both don't have fall off. So really and truly, if you're looking at shield break, Echo's as good as Junkrat. It's a quick projectile with no fall off and a large clip size. The increased spread will limit her ability to deal damage at mid to long range risk-free. She now has to get a little bit closer. A hero with 2 massive damage abilities, one needed to be changed to more utility. With the longer time between bombs, Echo can now target multiple heroes and spread the explosion debuff. Focus Beam is one of the most damaging abilities in the game with insane forgiveness. If this powerful ability now misses, it's automatically cancelled with a penalty. While we see Duplicate as getting nerfed to being useless, it is now a calculated risk for reward. As Echo doesn't die and can immediately use abilities afterwards, there's no real way to punish it. With this, now Echo has to be careful of constantly picking tanks to duplicate or risk charging everyone else's ults. So that's really the only way I could think about nerfing her ultimate. There's other like messy ways to nerf it where she can't use abilities after the ult's done. Everything's on cooldown. So if you don't know it right now, she has the iframes, so she's invulnerable going in and leaving ult. But if she just holds down the button, she can cast her mobility first frame. There's little to no risk with her ultimate, unlike most other heroes. So if we don't add ability, if we don't add risk to the hero casting it, then there needs to be risk when using it. Now we're on to another weird one. Genji. Genji, I don't mind. Design-wise, Genji does have a unique thing about him that most people forget, and it's understandable that they forget it because it's not that unique, but design-wise, it does set him apart. Genji's uniqueness. He is a dive hero, but he is the only dive hero out there that can set himself up from mid to long range. And I say long range, but it's like mid range. Tracer has to dash in, hope she gets something, recall out. Doomfist has to just jump right in, hope he gets something, leave. Echo kind of has to do the same thing, because Echo slightly does fall into the mobility burst type grouping. But she's on the edge of that just because she is a little bit more vulnerable, and she has one movement ability, and that's it. So you don't see her diving like the rest. But she definitely is in that high mobility burst damage category. Genji's the only hero that can sit at range and hit people for decent damage and set himself up so that then he can dash in at a weaker target, burst them down, and then dash out. Design-wise, that criteria does set him apart. It's hard, like a game developer, leaker, or just Overwatch fan, not being toxic, just wanting their credibility. My credibility is you go to my blog, you go to my YouTube. Most of the stuff I've discussed in this game, Overwatch has gone down that. Basically, I have done game jams. I'm not some AAA game dev. I've done game jams. I've done game design that way, but I study game design in depth, and I've written a lot of papers on Overwatch design. If you really want to see something funny, I wrote why tanks are being changed, why one tank will be great for Overwatch 2, and Lemon Kiwi's changes for the experimental card change that just happened. I call her I don't call her shit out. I say I take her design and I'm like, this is what would happen if you went with her design a couple years ago, and that experimental card for me was wonderful because I called it and it happened the exact way I thought it would. So I'm quite happy about that. But yes, no, I understand. You're like, hey, who are you? Are you a Blizzard person? No, I just talk design. But I talk like good design. Like, you can't really argue that Genji is the only burst hero that can set himself up mid-range. Now, the problem with that is, like, does that mean anything in Overwatch? Well, it is a unique thing, but Overwatch happens so quickly now that people don't just sit at mid-range and poke and then give themselves seconds to dive in and kill people. So it's not that big of a uniqueness. You can easily... Like, you basically just have to dash in, get a kill very quickly, and then dash out. If people are good enough where if you sit at mid-range, you're probably going to get shot in the face. Or you're going to take damage and you can't dash in because you're at low health. So what would I change for Genji with Overwatch 2? Just like with Hog, I think there is great simplicity with making your primary and your secondary attacks based on the same thing, right? You just do the same attack two different ways. Oh, and it has two different uses, and it's really cool. I get that from a simplicity point of view, but at the same point, you're locking yourself in where if you change one ability, the other one has to change. So I'd rather disassociate these two abilities a little bit. And just make them a little bit more unique. That way we can buff and nerf one or nerf and buff the other. You know what I mean? Like, we have more versatility in how to make things change. So we slow the secondary rate of fire a lot. We essentially make it a little bit of a shotgun, but we significantly reduce the spread. So now he doesn't need to use his mouse 1 at, I'll just say 20 meters. Let's say that's basically mid-range. Mid-range starts around 15, 20, goes to about 30, 35. So what I really want is Genji to be a little bit more deadly with his right click, a little bit more not articulate, but a bit more accurate at the cost of attack speed. This will allow him to essentially do his, right click dash from a little bit farther away and stop forcing him to be literally right on top of someone to this right click headshot dash combo that they really try to do. Right, they try to do right click dash turn melee. This allows him to set himself up a little bit better at mid range with his right click instead of just basing it on, not that you can't be accurate with it, but a little bit less accurate over, a little bit less consistency over time with his primary. I think Jake was actually spot on with dash. Dash has 2 charges, damage down from 50 to 15, dash cooldown down to 6. Really, the DPS in Overwatch it's where it needs to be. I think damage values, I don't think we want to fuck with damage values in Overwatch too much. It would take a lot of changes to start if you start fucking with damage, you got to start fucking with everything. HP pool's got to be modified. Shield pool's got to be modified. Healing has to be modified. It's really big. So I don't think we should be increasing or decreasing damage too much. Dash does have a large AoE. It's very forgiving. And again, Overwatch 2 is moving away from abilities and more towards FPS fundamentals. So now with his right click being a shotgun, more or less, allowing him to hit headshots and grouping those headshots together because he has 3 separate bullets. Force him to use that instead of just having a very high damage, very wide, forgiving dash. But in that context, dash is now on a lower cooldown, so you can do something with it. Deflect, I like. There's one part I don't like about it, and we always talk about it, but duration down to 1 second. AoE is minus, like its width is minus 15% on both sides, so he can be shot from the side a lot easier. We lower the cooldown. It can no longer stop melee damage, and deflect is a 0.2 second delay afterwards where Genji cannot attack. He can do anything else, just can't attack. And this is because we can't really change the rule in Overwatch where you hold down an ability and it activates first frame when you can cast it. So right now, if you're deflecting and you hold down your right click or your secondary attack, Genji will attack first frame, and since it's favor the shooter, it's always going to come out, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. So I think it's really, really dumb that Genji can be invulnerable in front of you, hold down a button, and you're going to take that damage no matter what. Does it kill you? Does it not kill you? I don't know, but I don't like that. I don't like the invulnerability, and there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing against Genji or Genji players or anything like that. I don't like invulnerability. And I get that players are going to be like, oh, we'll just pick a different hero. Do something else. Truth is with Overwatch 2, we don't want to force people off of heroes. Truth. We shouldn't be doing that in Overwatch 1. But essentially, you're not forced off of heroes as long as they're good. So essentially, don't play off meta. I want people to be able to melee them. I don't think you should be able to just deflect, get in, and nothing you do about it. So these are the changes for that. But I do want it to be lower in duration. I want it to be more of a skill deflect. He sees an attack coming. He knows what's going to happen. He needs to buy a second. We lower it by a second. He has to do something, get out, get in. No more fucking around for that extra second. And then we lower the cooldown to allow him to use it a little bit more often. Now, Dragon Blade, this is going to sound weird, but Dragon Blade now lasts for 12 seconds. Damage is down to 80. And the blade reduces deflect cooldown to 2 seconds. What I want with Genji when he's in his ultimate, I want him to be an extremely proficient dueler. That's really what I want from him. I don't want Dragon Blade to be this thing where he can kill an entire team, and I know that's the whole point of ultimates, but you guys know I'm biased against ults. I'm not a fan of them. So, what we want, or what I want, is to make it where he's going to have consistent damage. He's going to have to do it a lot, but he's going to have the ability to outplay you very easily. And you can't block or stop or do anything about his damage. That's really what's really good about his ult, is that 80 damage in a 5-meter AoE, unblockable, anythingable. And he's constantly deflecting, constantly moving. And here's my notes to check myself. It was always strange that a shotgun weapon of a hero was quicker than a non-shotgun version. That's true. So, as you know, Genji's right click's a shotgun, more or less, and it is faster than his mouse one, which is weird, right? Imagine if Hog's primary was twice as fast as his secondary. The shotgun is usually stronger but slower. Allowing Genji to be more accurate at long ranges, to up his burst potential at mid-range and allow him to close in with dash to finish them off. The idea behind Genji was precision, so we want to take away a bit of his spam ability. Deflect while buffed overall now is a delay so that players can no longer be damage immune and follow up with a secondary attack that activates first frame by holding it down. Enemies now have a chance to hit Genji before he gets his attack off. Now Dragon Blade is heavy execution style ult like the rest of his kit, right? So we start following the same theme. He loses damage for incredibly strong dueling kit. I'm not on board with all DPS ults being massive damage. Now the first sniper. Or not sniper. So this is what I would do to Hanzo. Give him 50 armor. Also, he can no longer be headshot. Stormbow always does 125 damage. Charging only affects its arc. Stormbow recovery from 0.5 to 0.4. Stormbow no longer reduces movement speed. So, this is going to sound really weird. And people are going to be like, wait, so Hanzo could get up in your face and spam very low speed arrows and still do 125 damage? Yes. It sounds weird, but what I want to happen to his primary attack, I want him to be rewarded for arcing shots and hitting players behind stuff. And right now, you have to charge for so low to do this that it does little to no damage, and it's not really that good. Hanzo to me has always been this non-sniper sniper, if you will. With Scattershot, I was like, oh, it makes sense. Someone's around the corner, he can't hit them, so now he has the ability to shoot around corners. It's funny, I've been saying this for years, and then they added the Ricochet to his Storm Arrow. Like, I swear to God, a Blizz developer has to be listening to me, because I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted from Hanzo. Most snipers can't shoot things that are behind cover. Great, you have a non-traditional sniper that's supposed to be a sniper, then he can hit people around corners. Great. But since we don't want things to die in one shot, so now we just take away his headshot, and now he can lob stuff around, like, over people. So instead of being ricocheting left and right, which we will say, like, more like Junkrat, but Junkrat definitely has a heavy arc, he can now arc shots over people. He's not going to one-shot, but he's going to do heavy damage. And overall, his recovery's been lowered, so his recovery's been lowered by 20%. And he always retains his speed when he's charging Stormbolt, so he's definitely more mobile. But yeah, I just wanted to reward lobbing shots. Like, I think if there is an archer, and they're good enough to put an arrow straight over a wall and hit someone on the other side, fuck yeah, I think they should be rewarded for that. Storm Arrow replaced with Ricochet Arrow. So this is exactly what my idea was, and it's been for years. Basically, 2-second cooldown. The arrow will ricochet once. That's it. So, he has a good chance of putting damage around a corner. I think he should have that pretty much readily available. It shouldn't just be every shot, but it should kind of be a bit of a called shot. And that can happen, every now and then. Well, not every now and then, pretty often. And then overall, Sonic Arrow cooldown increased to 20 seconds, duration cut in half, AoE reduced. This is straight up nerf. Information is the strongest ability in Overwatch. Is his primary attack not headshot at all, or is that just Storm Arrow? No. In my conceptual nature with Hanzo, he can no longer headshot. He's essentially, if you want to think of this as another non-traditional sniper, he's the body shot king. The idea is that Hanzo will now have 200 health, 50 armor, constantly putting out 125 damage. He's not going to be slowed down while doing this. He's still going to retain his mobility, but he's going to be quick doing it. You try to break line of sight, he's going to ricochet you. He's going to try to constantly ricochet you. That's really what I want him to do. Close range, obviously doesn't have to charge his bow as much, so he's going to be shooting a lot of arrows close range if like a tracer gets up to him. But to me, and actually to everyone, information is the strongest thing in Overwatch. It's the strongest thing in any game. You know my applied method to get better at games. There's a reason why information is the most fundamental layer of everything. It's how Brood War works, how every single game works. Information is key. We saw this in Apex Legends when they had the the scan meta, they called it, when it was like Seer and Bloodhound, and they just constantly scanned and checked where everyone was. And the Apex developers said, they're like, we realize that by giving all this information away, we are robbing players of one of the biggest skills that people work on, which is understanding sound and what is possible, and building this information network in their head to know what can and cannot be done. When you give pure information out, that's all gone. There's no guesswork. Like, you see him. You're looking up there, you're like, oh, there's the guy. He's right through that wall. I can see him. Like, there's nothing he can do to trick me. And if we go back to deception, how there is no deception in Overwatch, and how this will add more deception in it, just by information being made, like, less readily available. So I don't want to say it's really weird. He becomes like this weird shotgun sniper, if you will. I was like, I don't believe snipers should exist in Overwatch, so Hanzo is becoming the most unusual sniper, being the body shot king. His bullet is overall improved, but can no longer headshot. This will allow him to shoot over obstacles more accurately and with more damage, along with shooting around corners more often with a low cooldown ricochet. I don't believe Sonic Arrow should be a scouting tool, but something to confirm a hero is directly around a corner or behind an obstacle. Yeah, I want... And the weird thing, maybe this is what... this is actually what maybe Sojourn's turning into. This actually could be Sojourn. Does anyone remember if Sojourn could headshot? I mean, she basically has the... I forget what it was from Unreal Tournament. What the hell was it? The shock rifle? I think Sonic Arrow could stay at a 12 to 14 second cooldown with AoEs down to 4. Yeah. Information is just so good. The strongest ultimate in Overwatch is Widow. By leagues. It's the only ultimate that can stop attacks for, 12 seconds? But yeah, these numbers are adjustable, but I would say 14 seconds would be reasonable. I'm probably coming at this pretty hard because I'm like, fuck information. Deception, deception, deception. That's the only reason why Brood War is still the best competitive game in esports. Alright. Now, let's just do it. Let's get it done with, boys. Everyone's going to say, well, here comes the Junkrat changes. So, much like Hanzo, 200 hit points plus 50 armor. I do this with a lot of projectile heroes, because projectiles heroes need that extra 50 health to cover the time from when their projectile is fired to get to the target. Essentially, that time span of the projectile getting to the enemy, I quantify as 50 health. Concussive Mine does 70 damage flat. Concussive Mine breaks for 2 seconds, and what this means is passives are disabled for 2 seconds. Concussive Mine is now a construct, cannot be eaten or deflected. So now Junkrat isn't helpless when defensive matrix is on him. He can at least get away. He can buy space. It disables passives. Again, Junkrat's weakness is mostly mobility heroes. Mobility heroes have passives that give them the mobility. So, Hanzo's wall and Genji's wall climb, disabled. Pharah's flight, Echo's flight, disabled. Mercy's flight, disabled. Lucio wall ride, disabled. You'll notice all of the mobile heroes that he has really big issues with. This change alone doesn't make him stomp on him, but it adds counterplay. Because now when Junkrat's fighting a Pharah, the Pharah can't just go in the sky and, use all her abilities all willy-nilly. She has to go, oh, well, the Junkrat could concussive mine me and disable my passive. So maybe I should have my rocket boosters on cooldown or off cooldown so that I can use them as soon as he hits me with this, so I can skip back into the air and stay mobile. it's a little bit of give and take. People have to start thinking about how they use abilities and when they use them against Junkrat at this point. I saw the one change I said for Junkrat. So primary goes from 120 to 130, but we drastically change his primary, how much is impact damage and how much is explosion. So right now it's 40 impact, 80 splash, and we go to 100 impact, 30 explosion. So significantly less splash damage, but his AoE goes from 2 meters to 3 meters. Again, this is in line with all other AoE changes I've made in the game. Less splash damage over a wider area, but remember, splash damage, it gives no alt charge to enemy supports. It applies a negative healing aspect, right? Minus 30% healing. Also, the AoE knockback's been removed, so they're not, at least from his primary, they're not just getting bounced around a lot. So the idea is if you're going up against a Junkrat, prepare to be anti-heal. Right? This is the whole idea of explosion damage based heroes will have a lot more anti-heal. I just say Trap works. I'm so bitter about Trap being broken for 5 years. I think what they're planning for it in Overwatch 2 is fine. This is obviously just tongue-in-cheek comments. I'm fine with if they remove Trap, make it a slow, and get rid of the lockdown from it. So overall, pretty simple changes for Junkrat. Junkrat's introduced some of the hero mobility through passives. His custom mind now helps with that. His primary is increased to give him more DPS for such an inaccurate weapon. His concussive mind damage is reduced significantly, but now has no fall off. Both his primary and conc deal explosion damage, so he provides a constant utility for his team. Lastly, his HP pool is increased so that he has a chance of fighting hit scan. The amount added just gives him just enough time to have his projectiles reach a target for a more even trade. That's it. Mei, I actually... All I say is, the changes Jake mentioned, like, they're actually goofy, but goofy in a good way. But removing her stun or her freeze aspect, I like that direction. And from what I can tell from Overwatch, from what we've seen in Overwatch 2, she's going in the right direction. So I want to keep with her design. But the larger ice block I like because it gives her more skill in that she can block doorways. She can like strategically block doors with her body. And maybe that's bad because you can block with your body and then you can block with wall and it feels like it's forever. But I like the idea that she can body block abilities for her team. I really like that. That seems very skillful. And then the fact that wall can launch people up to higher areas could be seen as griefing, but I think it gives a unique utility to her that isn't there now, that could be there. That would be nice to have. But there's a lot of things changing with her in Overwatch 2, and I try to conceptualize them. But even then, I can't fully make out what will happen to her. And this is coming from a Mei, essentially main back in the day. Before she was popular, from like season 3 to season 8 or 9, that's all Scruffles did. It was a Mei one-trick account. So yeah, I think that would put... I'm really interested to see what happens to Mei in Overwatch 2. Pharah. Now, this is going to sound crazy. She goes up to 100 free health, 100 armor for a total of 250. The nerf is that she's basically 20% less fuel. New Pharah passive. After 5 seconds out of combat, her army slowly regens like shields. The problem with Pharah is that she just gets pocketed. Now, if you remember my support changes, Mercy loses damage boost. So that's a big hit to Pharah. I want her to not be permanently in the air. I've said this for 5 years now. Well, like 4.5, because when Pharah was first created, she couldn't hover indefinitely. They made the change about 6 months in to make Pharah hover indefinitely. She's not designed for that. Personally, I don't think she's designed. Pharah should be on the ground for a very short time, and then she has to go back into the air again. So while she's on the ground, people think she's not as strong, which is true. But as a Quake player, I can tell you the rocket launcher is really fucking strong on the ground. To make up for her being stuck on the ground, we're giving her extra armor. And we're making her armor recover automatically to make her not dependent on supports. So overall, we reduce her mobility, but she now has a specific time when she's weak because she has to be on the ground, but it's not as weak as we think because she has armor and she's healing herself during that time. This is basically to disentangle the Pharah support pocket that has to be done currently in the game. You can't... There's nothing in the game that can make you less dependent on a support as a Pharah player without taking something from her away. You're gonna be like, oh, she's now not dependent on support. She's self-sufficient. And you're like, well, what's the nerf? And you're like, no nerf. And you're like, all right, now she's self-sufficient and she has a pocket. The fuck are we gonna do now? Maybe have fuel and/or armor regen faster while standing on the ground. You could do that, but I like the idea of just allowing her to heal at all. I'm fine with Pharah having downtime. I don't want her fuel to come back that quick. I think she should be on the ground. I think Pharah should work in a cycle much like Sombra does, where she's in the air, so that's her peak time. She's doing great, and then she has to land, and she's... But I don't want it to be a big dip like it is now. I just want it to be, maybe a little dip. And if she's on the ground, I'm assuming she's not getting attacked. She's landing behind cover, somewhere safe for a couple seconds. And even though I said 5 seconds, I would just say 2 or I'll say 3. I would basically treat it like shields. Pharah's increased HP pool is countered by requiring her to land for a couple seconds, even with perfect fuel usage. This is intended to give her a specific timing where she's weak. It does not mean she's useless. By giving her extra HP and armor, she can now deal with heroes on the ground better and sit back to heal just the armor part of her health. This makes her less reliant on support. Sweet. Thank you, Cora. Good thoughts. Reaper? I wouldn't fuck with Reaper. With stuns going away, with flanking being viable, Reaper... It is a complete guess, but Reaper could be one of the strongest heroes in Overwatch 2. Even without my changes, just by them removing stuns outside of tanks, I think Reaper is going to become a fucking menace. He's going to be moving faster. And he's going to have shotguns. I don't think you have to touch him. I think removing stuns is a giant buffer. Soldier? So I spoke about this with my changes beforehand, but Soldier is, in my system where explosion damage does more damage to armor and it applies a negative heal, Soldier is my case in point of why the system would be wonderful. We look at MOBAs and they have physical damage heroes, magic damage heroes, and then they have hybrid heroes. In Overwatch, we'll now have bullet damage heroes, explosion damage heroes, and then there'll be some hybrids. Soldier is the hybrid. So rockets do 40 direct, 80 splash, to 100 direct, and 20 splash. All of the damage is considered explosion. AoE is reduced from 3 meters to 2 meters. So instead of increasing his AoE like all other abilities that I've done in the game, I don't. I want Soldier to be a hybrid hero, and that's what makes him feel different. Is that he will strip armor off of heroes with rockets, and then he pegs them down with his primary attack. So he's one of the few hit scan heroes in the game that has the ability to strip armor away from people. So he's this hybrid damage type. And since he can do explosion damage himself, he can reduce healing on the enemy, and he can follow up and get kills. He is the best case for my system. And by reducing the AoE, we don't make him about, anti-heal everyone. Just a specific target. So I want Soldier to be more single target focused, help remove a lot of armor off of one target and focus them down. Pretty simple. Sombra? I think where the direction they're going with Sombra is correct. But I want the vision on her passive removed. Again, information's too strong. I just want it gone. The fact that Sombra's there seeing people invisible, that's the passive advantage. She can see people while being invisible. That's all the information you should need. She shouldn't get more information from it. Hacked health packs now heal enemies for 50% less instead of 0. With flanking being more viable in Overwatch 2, hacking health packs on the flank is going to cripple this. If Sombra can deal any sorts of damage in Overwatch 2, which from what we've seen so far, she's going to be fucking phenomenal in damage, she will always win the flank. Especially when she can sit on a health pack and deny you the health pack indefinitely. So instead of making this out of control, we say, hey, people heal less. They don't heal at 0, but they definitely heal less. I want her ultimate to be changed to a virus. Virus has no sound cue, only an animation. It lasts for 4 seconds, and it hacks a unit's ability for 1 second. Every 2 seconds, the virus jumps to another target within 8 meters. It can spread indefinitely. Right now, with Sombra's ult, and they kind of addressed this in Overwatch 2 by not making it remove shields. Shield health, I should say. Basically, supports hide. Sombra ults, the supports come out. This is identical to when Mercy used to hide with a 5-man res. Right? It's stupid design. So, right now, people have to be split apart too much for too long, and Sombra's fucking invisible. There's nothing you can really do about it. You have to be very, very coordinated to have any type of chance against it. So what I want is essentially to have that same concept. We want the team to split apart, but we want them to be able to deal with the EMP with essentially skill and position. So if they see the virus go off, it's going to start spreading, but they can essentially isolate that target, get away from them, let the ult run free, and then come back together. So it really thrives on chaos when things aren't really being paid attention. It reminds me of a Microsoft speaker who said there's 2 types of companies out there in the world: those that have been hacked, and those that don't know they've been hacked. That's the truth. If you ever work in IT security, that's just how it is. So the idea is you have to see it happening. It's a silent ultimate, and then you have to deal with it. If you don't deal with it, then you're in big trouble. But with good positioning, good movement, you can definitely do it. And I think the Overwatch 2 Sombra changes are good. I believe information is too strong for it to be a passive. Her being there and talking to teammates is enough information. Her EMP is the same as old Mercy, Zen, or any support. EMP is the same as old Mercy. Period. Zen or another support hides and waits for the ultimate to be used. They come out and ult. This removes hiding because players can separate fast enough to deal with the ultimate as it happens, but it has a high potential for if enemies are unable to split for whatever reason. Encourages more team play than the giant EMP elements. It's taking longer than I thought. Sim, we kind of talked about Sim before. My big issue with Symmetra is that she doesn't have a theme. Like, she has a theme, but her abilities don't have a theme. You know what I'm saying? Like, it all doesn't work together. It makes no sense. So to me, what Symmetra is, and I had to be like, all right, what concept do I want to roll with her? I want Symmetra to be balanced around closing the gap, or even the concept between the gap between supports and DPS. Allow both roles to select her. So Symmetra can be played as a DPS or a support. Doesn't matter. Sim now gets a pool of energy, 500 max. Much like Zarya has like a that pool. Starts at 100, builds 3 a second. All damage that she does is charged into this pool. So if she does 300 damage, she gets 300 energy into this pool. Secondly, we kind of work on her synergy. Using Teleporter now immediately kicks off shield regen and cleanses, both personal and barrier. You're a Reinhardt. For those that don't know, I nerfed shield regen. Instead of after 2 seconds, it's after 5 seconds. But if you're with the Sim, she now kicks off the shield regen instantly. There's no downtime. It also cleanses the target, so now there's a way to get rid of negative buffs or negative debuffs. Everyone calls them debuffs, and it's like it should be a negative buff, but whatever. So we're already adding a bit of utility here. And again, everything kind of does a little bit of DPS, a little bit of support. Now her turrets, this is going to sound weird. She gets 4 turrets max. They can attack while they're in the air. So you throw it at someone, it'll start zapping. The hit point of turrets is 100. They no longer deal damage, but they reduce the max HP of whatever they're attacking at 5% a second for a cap of minus 15% health. They still slow, and they do not stack. So it's not like if you get hit by 4 of them, you're at minus 60% health. They prioritize healing over hurting. Oh yeah, turrets can use the energy in the pool to heal allies. So the idea is that if you try to deal with a Sim, or if you try to peek a Sim, these turrets will start zapping your max HP. At minus 15 on a tank is actually pretty big. Minus 15% on Reinhardt's shield is huge. And all of this is considered damage to her pool, so it automatically starts charging her pool up. And they can heal and they can get hurt. So they prioritize healing over hurting. And the idea is that this is closing the gap, right? Ideal damage over here. Sorry, my camera's over here. Ideal damage over here. I heal people over here with that. I'm linking the two. That's where a lot of this concept comes from, is closing the gap. So literally she's closing the gap between DPS and support by being DPS and support at the same time. Sometimes my notes make me giggle. Her ultimate wall stays wall. Cool. So the thing about builder heroes or any deployable based hero, they are always weak to peeking. It's just how it works. Any kind of buildable always has like a second or half second to lock onto a target and deal damage. Like any turret does this. So you have to make an ability that's a projectile, because projectiles de-incentivize peeking. But in this case, her secondary damage goes down to 100. It does 50 impact, 50 splash. There's no longer a charge. You just press the button and it shoots it. Just to make it simple, and allows her to press the button again and detonate one of them at a time. So the secondary can be pressed again to detonate it. AoE is down to 1.5, 10 ammo, 0.9 attack rate, and only have 1 out at a time. Primary is now charges. Oh, sorry. This is a different. So I just want to talk about that. So, again, because of the explosion damage, it applies an anti-heal. And unlike now where Sim just has to spam a corner to stop people from peeking, you shoot once and then you explode it on the corner to push them away. And not like push them away, but just by dealing damage, they don't want to be there. she has to have that in her kit because she's a builder-based hero. Her primary attack is now changed to where it's a flat damage of 150. Pretty high, but it is lower than what sheer max damage is currently. Charging her primary now gives knockback. Minus 0.25, minus 0.5, and minus 0.75. I don't want her pushing people off the map. Essentially, as you attack Sim, because she has a lower attack range, I want her to slow you down. You can't actually attack her like head on, but at max, essentially, it's nullified. If you're moving forward against the Sim with full charge, you would just stay at the same exact spot. Again, I didn't want to change with her DPS too much. I want to give her some viability, some utility, and at the same point of the idea of closing the distance has to be there. So that's kind of like the opposite of her theme, which is still part of her theme. And that's, with Sim, I really had to like find where she needed to start at. But I think it's an interesting idea. Torb, I'll just say this straight up. I hate old D&D ways of balancing. A dagger does 1 damage every 0.5 seconds. A sword does 1 damage like every 1 second. A two-handed weapon does 2 damage every 2 seconds. It's all the same fucking thing. I don't like weakening a hero just to give him that back later on. And why I say this with Torb is that I don't like how they make Torb suck, and then they give him an ability to make him awesome, but for most of the time he sucks. So what we're doing is we're just going to cut through the center of this bullshit and just make him good. We don't make him as good as he was in Overload, but we make him like 50% of the way towards it. So his increased attack speed, increased secondary attack speed, his reload to deal with his increased DPS is longer now. So we keep the same DPS over a very long period of time from all the shots in a reload. But his short-term burst is higher because he has higher attack speed. Now this is kind of, when I played Weapons Factory as a child, this is how Engineer worked. Turret can be thrown 4 times farther, and it can stick to walls and ceilings. So you can put it up there, over there. It's hard to see. You know, he can put it in a lot of goofy spots. Why would this matter? Well, he can do some funny stuff with it. The truth is that I want to give him a grapple hook that only works to his sentry gun. So he has to look at his sentry gun, grapple it. Works just like Widow, where he can then slingshot and get verticality or whatever he wants with it. So now his positioning of his sentry gun now just isn't based on where's the best spot to deal damage, but it's like, where can I put the sentry gun so that I can use it for verticality, flanking, and other mobility aspects, which includes retreating and damage. So now it has a little bit more versatility. It's a little bit interesting. And this is just like a call out to my buddy Fuey. Headshot box minus 10%. His headshot box is like 50% of Torb's hitbox is a headshot box. And the exhaust pipes on his shoulders are no longer part of his hitbox, so he can truly hide behind stuff now. It's really weird to make a short hero with a smaller hitbox and then give him big smokestacks that make him vulnerable. I don't like it. A shorter hero should be smaller hitbox and should be able to hide. So with Torb, I don't agree with making a hero's kit worse just to make him press a button to fix it for a little bit of time. Just make their kit good to start out with. We increase his HP and attack speed to roughly half of what Overload does. To keep his DPS in check, we increase his reload time. We add the ability to grapple his sentry gun, so now his sentry can be used for mobility and positioning and has multiple uses. Okay, next. Tracer. With stuns removed, Tracer becomes scary. She already was scary, but now she's terrifying. We have to nerf her crazy. Besides information, the next strongest thing in any game is movement speed and logistics. If you can pick where to fight someone, you can always win a fight. Outside of knowing everything, that is the next strongest thing in any game. It's why movement speed has been nerfed out of most abilities in Overwatch. Right? Lucio's speed got nerfed. Ana's speed from Nano Boost got removed. All of these things, speed is very important. So to deal with Tracer properly, we nerf her damage, I would say significantly, but not that bad. Because now she's uncontrollable, right? She can blink whenever she wants, there's nothing stopping her. And we also reduce her fall off significantly. So now Tracer has to get close to you. Because she has the mobility, she must use it. She can't just sit at mid-range and fuck around. She has to close the distance. She has to put herself at a risk to deal damage. She can still one-clip people with this method. Recall goes from 12 to 20 seconds. I don't like it that a Tracer can blink 3 times towards you, throw an ult out, recall, for free. There's very little you can do to punish her, with no stuns. And then she does it 12 seconds later. Obviously without the ult, but every 12 seconds she gets her 3 blinks and her recall back. No, instead of fucking with her dash cooldown, let's just deal with recall. It should be an emergency skill, and when she uses it, it should be significant. I put it on the same strength scale as Immortality Field. Also, recall no longer shows heroes on the screen until she regains control. So when she uses recall, she's in the dark with how bad of a situation she's getting pulled back into. People may think this is disorienting, and maybe it is, but I think having full awareness of what's going on while you use recall is just icing on the cake that is the skill. You've literally got all your health back, you put yourself in a better position. Everything you did was risk-free. All you gotta do is wait 12 seconds. Not a big deal. So now there's a bit more risk to using recall. And now with Pulse Bomb, we nerf the damage significantly. 350 down to 150. The AoE, though, gets massively buffed. It goes from 5 to 15. The healing debuff that explosion damage gives now lasts 15 seconds with her. So the idea for Pulse Bomb as a find someone and kill them is gone. What it does now is it sets your team up for an attack. The idea is you open with 3 blinks, you ult, you recall back, and now your team engages. So she becomes a very heavy initiator with her ultimate, but not to the point where it's like, oh, I got a kill, we win. It's not like, guys, I did a lot of damage. They're taking reduced healing for the next 15 seconds. We have to go now. Here are my concepts or notes. Tracer is firing without stuns. Without stuns, she's completely unchecked. First, we have to balance her weapon. She retains her greatest ability in Overwatch, the ability to pick a fight. But now she has to commit to a kill by closing the distance more. This gives actual risk to her design instead of harassing at mid-range to kill targets. In Overwatch 2, without stuns, nothing will stop a triple blink into ult to nearly always get a kill. Remove that ability and give her the ability, or my notes were very quick. We give her the ability, I'll just say, of large AoE damage and greatly reduce healing. And lastly, Widow. So again, I don't want snipers in the game. So first of all, HP goes back to 200. Aiming down sights, her damage goes from 120 to 100. The headshot multiplier goes from 2.5 to 2. This is going to sound crazy, but her power bar only charges when the cursor is over an enemy or construct. So Widow can no longer sit there, charge a shot, and as soon as you come around, she shoots you. She literally has to track you and then shoot you. And a lot of people are like, my skill. Well, this forces you to really do skillful stuff. But you can aim at a shield and then just shoot someone else. You can do that. You can aim at a construct, take a shot. You will lose it as a little bit of the charge as you switch targets, but yeah, that'd be the idea. She would have variable zoom, so she's a little bit better against short range targets. And this is a weird thing, but it's based on information. I thought it was an idea. Widow no longer hears around her when aiming down sight. She hears where she's aiming at. So basically, it's a way of gathering information, but it comes at a cost of not knowing what's around her, like what happens with the sniper. If nothing else, I like that. If that was put in the game, it would be really interesting. Ammo reduced to 25, so she just has to reload a little bit more often. Next, grapple no longer works when aiming below the horizon, kind of like Hammond's grapple. So this will stop Widow from slingshot grappling, which I think is a cool idea. It was like that in Weapons Factory for Quake 2. All the grapples work that way. I don't think Widow should have that option. So just take it away. Venom Mine removed. With her ability to listen in wherever by looking on the flanks, she just can look over there and listen for people. Secondly, Scan is added an ability. It's a 12-second cooldown. It shows a ping of where each enemy is for 1 second. No outline, no extra information. Players get notified when they are scanned. So her ult's been changed. Basically, this is a much like Bloodhound's ult or scan from Apex Legends, but without giving the information of what hero is over there. She just knows there's a hero over there. So every 12 seconds, people can know where the enemy is at for a split second. Basically, if you didn't notice, with Widow, she's becoming DPS utility, and the utility is information. Now, her new ultimate, I just say Widow's Kiss or whatever the fuck you want to call it, lasts 12 seconds. Her headshot multiplier goes back to 2.5. Her shots go through everything except terrain. ADS charges like it does now. So, I don't like snipers in Overwatch. It removes too much of the map. This is why a lot of Battle Royales don't have hit scan. Because Battle Royales are big open areas, and if you have a hit scan, that weapon wins. By making everything a projectile, things can be balanced. People can fight in open areas. There's a lot more skill involved. There's a lot more missing. It just makes everyone be able to use the map as any hero. It's wonderful. Overwatch, the developer said this, Overwatch gameplay breaks down at long ranges. This is why. This is one of the reasons why. So the idea is to remove a lot of lethality from Widow. We put a lot of skill and conditions around her burst damage so that it should be very rare for her to one-shot someone. Still technically possible, but very rare. But she does gain all this lethality back, plus some, with her ultimate. But her ultimate's a global Q, so you're like, oh, there's a one-shot on the field now, I have to play safe. Instead of right now when it's like, there's a Widow and an Ashe damage boosted on the field, I'm going to die if I look out at any point in time. So now she gains lethality, plus some, because you can't hide behind shields or another player. She could headshot 5 heroes at once with this, if it so happened. And it charges like it does now. So basically it brings back a lot of the sniper aspect of her. You could put it on a lowish cooldown and have this thing kick off more often than other ultimates. But basically the idea is just to make this one shot that greatly changes the game, to put on a global notification that has limited usage instead of unlimited usage like it is now. My notes on it. Again, I don't believe snipers should be in Overwatch. They remove too much of the map and it makes map design shitty and ruins a significant amount of strats. There's a reason why Battle Royales have projectiles and a huge open world map. Secondly, what she loses in her killing ability, she gains by being more versatile. She can now more easily shoot enemies that are closer, as well as gets more up-to-date information about everyone. She has the ability to hear at the location she's aiming at, which makes her more open to being flanked, as well as losing Venom Mine, but at the same time, she can get more actual information for her teammates. She gains much of her sniper power back with her ultimate so that everyone knows there's a 1-kill shot in the field for a specific amount of time. In return, she can damage and headshot multiple people at once. So, that's the direction I think you're going to need to take snipers in Overwatch 2. Because I feel like snipers are going to be super good or super shitty in Overwatch 2 based on what they do. That's it. This took a lot longer than I thought. But I'll get this uploaded to YouTube and finally I get all my ideas out there.